Hello and welcome to the Blackie Bushcraft channel. 8 questions, 5 tags. That's today's assignment for this video. Stick with me and let's get started. Recently I was tagged by Jamie Boggs of Burning River Bushcraft to answer these 8 questions that pertain to bushcraft, survival, camping, those types of topics. And at the end I'm supposed to assign 5 tags to others to pass this on through the YouTube community. I've got my 5 friends picked out and I'll assign those tags at the end of the video, but for now, let's get started on the 8 questions. So the first question is, what was your most memorable camp? And if I think back through all the really nice places that I've been to camp and all the different campouts I've been on, one place stands out to me as being legendary. And amazingly enough, it happens to be on my own family's land. When we were kids, my cousin Jonathan, Michael, my brother Robbie, all of us used to just roam in the woods. Sometimes we'd be riding ATVs and lots of times we were just on foot. And I can remember one day we were way back to the edge of our family's land and we came across this area that was cleared out and obviously had been used as a campsite by somebody previously. And it was just a beautiful area, and I found in the corner there some beer bottles, and the beer bottle actually was a Rolling Rock bottle. And so I looked at my cousin and I said, hey, let's call this camp Rolling Rock. And ever since then, the name stuck. And we went back down there so many times camping. We actually even went down there recently and just fired up a campfire and cooked breakfast just for the fun of it with my cousin and his boys. But that was a legendary camp and a place that we have had many, many hours of great fun, just enjoying the woods, enjoying nature and each other's company. So I have to say, Camp Rolling Rock has to be the most legendary for me. The second question is, do you prefer solo camping or group camping? And I'd have to say, in a situation where it's staying overnight or for multiple nights, I really do enjoy group trips just because you get a chance to share the things that you enjoy and the things that work for you in the woods with the people that you're camping with, and vice versa. You get to learn from their experience and pick up little tips and tricks along the way. So there's that kind of exchange, but also just a camaraderie of sharing a camp with others and just kind of reminiscing and sharing old stories and things like that. There's just something about that that tends to make good memories, and again, that learning and exchange of knowledge I think is great. With all that said, I really do enjoy my solo time in the woods, whether it be just coming for an afternoon outing or like a single overnighter trip. Sometimes I feel like it does me a lot of good to come out here and just disconnect from everything else and have that quiet time. A chance to listen to nature, listen to my inner self, and just recharge, again, mentally and spiritually through being out here, connecting with nature. And just focusing on basic needs like setting up a shelter, getting a fire going, keeping myself warm, hydrated, cooking some food on the fire. All of those things just relax me and help me to recharge so that I'm that much better when I go back to my daily routine where life can sometimes get a little bit hectic. This is a chance to de-stress and unwind. So the third question may be the most difficult for me to answer, and that is, what is your favorite knife? And the reason that's difficult is because I've been collecting knives for basically all my life, and I've attained quite a collection of knives and a lot of different types of knives I've bought over the course of time. And that's because my taste and as my skills have changed, my taste in knife has changed as well. But currently, for about the last year and a half, I've been using consistently the same knives over and over again. I find myself always picking up certain ones. So today I thought I'd show you just a few of those, and you're going to see an overlap in several, and that is the brand Wood Bear. Once I bought my first Wood Bear knife, I was curious to get a second and a third, and I've just absolutely fallen in love with these knives because everything that I think is important, these knives has. Just to show you the one that's on my hip, this is the Wood Bear brand Nordic Bear E. And I've used this knife quite a bit. You've seen it on camera, and I really like this knife a lot. It's about a 4-inch, or I think 4.25-inch blade, high Scandinavian grind. You can see that the grind comes right up to the finger guard, which I really like. 90-degree spine, 01 tool steel, and the handle is just a perfect ergonomic for me. It just fits my hand perfectly. There's no hot spots. If I want to use the knife in a reverse chest lever grip, which I do quite a bit, it's got those thumb scallops, which perfectly fit my thumb. The pommel back here on the knife fits right into the palm, right here on the blade of my hand. It's almost like it was tailored for my hand. So I really do love this knife. This knife here is a very similar knife. This is the Nordic Bear 2, which is currently not in manufacture. It's also one of Andreas' knives. And you can see it is very similar in design and appearance to the one that's on my belt. 4.25 inch blade. They're both 5/32 01 tool steel. Look at the grind of that knife. It goes right up to the handle scales. Just fantastic the way that's designed. Everything about these knives is just a perfect ergonomic for my hand. One other category of knife that I could not mention in a favorite knife segment is the Mora Classic series. And this is probably one of my first bushcraft style knives that I bought. And this is I believe it's an S1, but I have used this knife so much. I have it set up as a neck knife just to carry it on a leather cord around camp. But I have used this thing and other classics just like it. I've got the Mora 1, the Mora 2, and this one. And I just almost always throw one of those in my haversack or carry it along with me in my pack as a backup knife. I absolutely love these for fine carving. It's just hard to beat them. It's a classic. It just has the traditional look and feel. An excellent knife and one of my favorites. That's really hard for me to narrow this list down that small. There's several others that I could mention for sure. A Mora Garberg is also a favorite of mine, and the LT Wright GNS. I own two of those, and I have used them extensively over time, and those are both knives that I would stake my life on. So there's several others that I could mention, but I got to narrow this down somehow. I said the third question would be about the most difficult, but the fourth might be even harder. And the fourth question is, where did you learn bushcraft? It'd almost be an easier question to ask, where did you not learn bushcraft? I'd say that I started learning it even before I knew the word bushcraft, because as kids we were out camping and hiking and setting up forts and things like that, building shelter basically. And so I learned through all of those periods of time. I learned things from my grandfather, like how to build a fire. I learned things like splitting firewood and things like that, which all translate to bushcraft, how to use an axe safely. Those are things I was learning long before I was into bushcraft, so to speak. I will say this, in 2009 I joined a YouTube community and I actually started making videos of a different kind, and early on I subscribed to Dave Canterbury. And Dave's one of those people that got into YouTube at the perfect time, and his channel really took off because of the quality of content that he's posting. And so I've always followed Dave, and I got involved with the Pathfinder School. And through that, I've learned a ton from Dave, from other Pathfinder instructors who have shared with me along the way. That's been a source of a lot of knowledge as well. And from other YouTubers, and I could go on and on and on with that list. You can look at my list of people I subscribe to, and that'll give you some indication. But I will say this, the number one place that my knowledge of bushcraft has come from is the woods. There's no substitute for just getting out here and trying things and making mistakes and figuring out what does work and what doesn't work. And just because you've seen one person do it this way and it worked for them, that might not work for you. And those are all lessons that I've had to learn just through repeatedly coming out in the woods and practicing. And every chance I get a spare hour or two to do that, I have done that over the course of many years. So number one way to learn, number one place to learn is through trial and error and actually getting in the woods. And I'd say that's definitely where the majority, the 60% of my knowledge comes from. And number 5 is yet another difficult question for me, and that is, what is your favorite method of making fire? And that really does depend on the day that you ask me. I basically look at my training in the woods as going in phases. My most recent phase for fire making was bow drill. And I hadn't done that in a couple of months, and so I was like, all right, I need to sharpen up my skills with the bow drill. And so I came out and started carving sets and making fires with bow drill, and did it over and over until I felt like, it was kind of a second nature skill again. And that's one of those ones that you kind of have to polish it every so often. Previous to the bow drill phase that I was in, I was huge into flint and steel. And that was partially because I started blacksmithing and I learned how to forge a fire steel. And then I did a video where I came out and found quartz right out here in the field, and I was able to use natural char, did a video on that. So I could find natural material to char, found the rock, forged the steel. So I kind of owned that entire process. For me, that was huge. So I like flint and steel for that reason. With the bow drill, I can make natural cordage if I want to take the time to do it, and make a bow drill set off the landscape and make fire. As long as I have a blade to do it with, of some type, be it axe or knife, I can make fire. And I like that I own that process to some degree. I really like solar ignition because you're not expending a resource when you use that magnifying glass. And even if I have no other materials, if I have that magnifying glass, I know I can pretty much find something in the woods that I can make an ember out of, whether it be a fungus, whether it be like that real rotten punk wood that I recently demonstrated on a video. So I like that because I feel like as long as I got that magnifying glass, I can make fire. So again, I like methods that I sort of understand from the beginning to the end. Can forge the steel, make the fire. Can make the cordage in the set and make the fire. I have that solar glass. I can find something out here around me and make the fire. So for me, those things are really big. So for me, solar ignition, flint and steel, and bow drill would definitely be my favorite three. And the top would be depending on the day that you asked. So number 6 is actually a fairly easy question for me, and it is, what is your number one tool in your kit? And as of late, I'd have to say my number one tool is this Grand Forest Brook Wildlife Hatchet. The beauty of a tool like this lies in its flexibility. This is small enough and light enough to still be nimble for things like carving. Let's say I want to make feather sticks or carve a bow drill set. I can easily do that with this axe. But at the same time, it's robust enough if I need to delimb a tree or chop, 2-3 inch trees. This is no problem to do that with. If I want to hammer something into the ground, hammering stakes in the ground, I have that hammer pole that I can do that with. If I want to baton through something, to get into the inner parts of the wood to make a bow drill set, spindle, have dry wood to feather stick with and things like that, this is no problem. Whereas I wouldn't want to take my belt knife out and hammer on it too hard. This, it's made for that. And so I really like having this smaller axe, and I feel like it's very flexible to do the heavier chores that I wouldn't want to do with my knife, and yet still be light and nimble enough to do chores that a larger axe wouldn't be well suited to. All right, number 7 is an easier question. Do you carry a bug out bag in your vehicle? Yes, I carry emergency supplies in my vehicle. I do not have a bag that's designed for me to just strike out into the woods and live for an indefinite amount of time. I don't believe in such a bag necessarily. However, I do have a backpack that's packed with essentials such as metal container to disinfect water with. I do have like an Esbit stove that I can use to boil that water if I'm not able to make a fire for whatever reason. I do have fire starting equipment, a compass, a map of the areas that I frequent. Within a few states of me, I have state maps in there. I do have first aid supplies, water filter. I keep bottled water in my truck and I rotate it regularly. Mountain House meals, I rotate regularly. Wool blanket, tools, things that I can use for mechanical repairs on my vehicle or any other mechanical device that I might have to work on, such as sockets, screwdrivers, and things like that. So I do have a basic kit of supplies that I can use in case of an emergency. And if I had to exist with those supplies for a day, 3 days, 5 days, I'm sure that they could sustain me with no problem. And all that brings us to number 8, which is probably the easiest of questions for me to answer. Your favorite stove. Is it alcohol, wood, or gas? And for me, I'm personally a campfire cooker. I like to get out on the fire, on the coals, and cook things up a little more primitive style. But if I'm not going to be doing that, give me the Cadillac of camp stoves, the 2-burner Coleman gas stove. When I was a kid, my dad used to have one of these, and he used to love to get that thing out and cook on it just for fun right at home. And I'm kind of the same way. If I'm not going to cook over a fire, I just as soon get out that stove, get a big cast iron skillet out, get the coffee percolator out, get that thing fired up, and man, you can cook just as good, if not better, as you can in the house. So for me, a Coleman 2-burner gas stove, again, in my opinion, is the Cadillac of camp cooking. All right, so there you have my answers to the 8 questions. Now it's time to pass it on to 5 others with some tags. Before I get started, I would like to say to any of you guys that I tag on this, if you don't want to answer this, please don't feel any pressure. I'm not going to be offended in any way. If you just say no thanks, that's fine, all right? Or you don't have to really say anything. So I wanted to give these tags to you. If you want to do it, I'd love to hear your answers, but if you don't, again, no hard feelings. I will say that it was hard for me to narrow this down to just 5 channels to tag because I do have a lot of friends here and people that I respect in this community. However, these were 5 people that I've had a back and forth with ongoing here recently on some level, and so that's why their names kind of came to the top of my head. Some of these are large channels that are very well established and some that are just getting off good, so hopefully it'll bring some recognition to those people. The first one I'd like to tag is Pastor Mike at the NC Lighthouse Pathfinders page. Pastor Mike is a good friend, somebody who I've met multiple times, and he has a Pathfinder youth group that he shares with on a regular basis, all through volunteer and just to kind of share with our youth. And so I'm really proud to know Pastor Mike is a great guy, and I'm happy to pass this tag on. I'd love to hear your answer, sir. The second one is a young man named Josh at White Oak Outdoors, and Josh is a very knowledgeable young man, and he's getting his channel kicked off really good. I strongly recommend you go check him out. I really enjoy watching his videos, and I think he has a lot of potential here on YouTube. So Josh, I'd love to hear your answers to these questions. The third tag I'd like to issue to Blackie at Shaman's Forge Woodscraft. His channel is actually Black Oracle 69. Blackie is a super guy. He's very knowledgeable, and he and I have been back and forth. We watch each other's videos. He often comments on mine, sharing his ideas. I comment back on his stuff, watch all his videos, and he has a unique take on things. I've learned a lot from Blackie, so I'd love to hear your response, sir, if you'd like to answer these, no pressure. The next one is a gentleman that I met recently down in Georgia when I was going down for teaching at a Pathfinder class, and that's Kevin Bowin. And Kevin's kind of getting his channel kicked off here. A super guy, very nice guy. I'd love to hear your response to these 8 questions, Kevin, if you'd like to shoot that video. And the fifth and final tag goes to Sean Kelly over at Corrporals Corner. Most likely you're familiar with Sean's channel, but if you're not, you definitely should check it out, Corrporals Corner. Sean and I have trained together on multiple occasions and recently taught together at a class down in Georgia for the Pathfinder School. So super guy, extremely knowledgeable. And Sean, if you get around to shooting this video, I'd definitely be interested in hearing your responses. So there you go, 5 tags for 5 of my friends who I feel have awesome channels. I'll definitely put some links in the box down here below. If you're not familiar with these channels, please go and check them out. And if you like what you see, definitely subscribe. For those 5 guys that I tagged, if you want to participate in this, I'd love to hear your responses and watch your videos. But if you choose not to, again, no pressure, no hard feelings whatsoever. For those of you that have watched this, my subscribers and viewers, I appreciate your interest, your support. Thanks for sticking around. I definitely hope to be talking to you with another video again very soon. And until the next one, take care and God bless.